Good evening, everyone. I chose to do my discrimination speech on anti-homosexuality. This is nothing that I have ever experienced personally, so I read the article In Search of Federal Remedies for LGBT Students who are victims of assault and harassment in schools. Before I continue, let me tell you that LGBT stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender. While reading this article, I started to learn more and more about this type of discrimination and the effects that it is having on our adolescents in our schools. Emotional distress such as depression, suicidal thoughts, and even attempts of suicide are harder for those adolescents in the LGBT community than it is for heterosexual adolescents in our schools. A study that was completed in 2007 showed that 31% of the LGBT adolescents had attempted committing suicide, whereas 14% of the heterosexual students had attempted suicide. There is a significant difference in these two numbers. The difference is due to the continued bullying and discrimination that the LGBT students face in our schools. Harassment and assaults of LGBT students have become such a common occurrence in our public schools. This has become a serious issue for our American schools. Since 2007, same-sex relationships have become more accepted. This is due to the support that has been provided to those LGBT youth, but they still face more difficulties than their heterosexual peers. Student leaders are trying to change things by taking active roles in forming alliances between these two classes of students. The bullying and discrimination still remain, and many times these incidents end up in our court systems because of school negligence. Our schools are not adequately addressing the conduct of these students, and in some cases, if you can believe it, the school officials are even participating in the harassment. To increase tolerance and to reduce the harassment of LGBT students in our schools, students across the country have formed the Gay Straight Alliance, short GSA. The stated purpose of GSA is to provide students with a safe haven to talk about anti-homosexual harassment and to work together to promote tolerance, understanding, and acceptance of one another regardless of their sexual orientation. Since 2008, there have been 700 of these student groups across America. This anti-homosexual discrimination not only causes emotional stress to our youth, it is also affecting their academic performance, causing truancy issues, and a lot of times these students are ending up dropping out of school. This article contained numerous court cases involving horrific bullying and discrimination towards LGBT students. Some examples of the harassment and violence in these cases were name-calling, students being urinated on, kicked repeatedly in the stomach until it had caused internal injuries, mock rapes in front of an entire classroom, death threats, vandalism. I could go on and on. Our courts are recognizing the impact that this is having on our LGBT youth. In the court proceedings of Harper versus Poway, the judge stated, LGBT individuals are an identified minority subjected to discrimination in our society. In addition, school youth are vulnerable to cruel, inhuman, and prejudiced treatment by others while they discover who they are as individuals. In another court proceeding, of Chambers versus Babbitt, the judge stated that it will always remain the privilege and responsibility of the parents and citizens of this community to raise and nurture its children into decent and caring human beings who treat people with dignity, respect, kindness, and equality. Messages of hatred, bias, and intolerance would not be a part, or should not be a part, of any child's upbringing. This statement is true for not only anti-homosexual discrimination, but for everyone who has ever been discriminated against. Hatred for someone is a learned behavior. I agree with the judge that said it is the responsibility of the parents and its citizens. We are responsible for our children on how their behavior towards one another. I have always instilled in my children and grandchildren that it doesn't cost anything to be kind. Thank you and have a good evening.